You know, everyone is chasing AI adoption in HR like it's some holy grail, but whenever you stop and look, HR is really not adopting as fast as it should. Honestly, it's failing. But what if I told you that it wasn't AI that was failing? Nope. It is actually the people who are affecting AI adoption in HR, and there are three human problems behind it. I am Trent Cotton, a 20-year plus HR veteran and self-proclaimed human capitalist. I have seen every transformation trend imaginable, but nothing has fractured HR like AI. And after talking to dozens of CHROs and experts in my podcast, it's pretty clear. HR doesn't have a technology problem, it has a people problem. And there are three hidden roadblocks that break every AI rollout in HR. Let's unpack each one of those and show how you can actually build an AI-ready HR organization. So let's talk first about skill gaps. I am not saying that HR needs to learn how to code, but they do need some AI literacy or confidence to use AI insights to hire, to develop, and to retain people. Why? Organizations with continuous learning cultures are 92% more likely to innovate, but HR often lags because we treat learning as a checkbox, not as an actual inherent part of our culture. Andrea, one of my guests on the podcast, identified two personas in HR.
When we talk about large scale changes for the HR function, I think that the HR function will find themselves in quite some turmoil. I say that because I've observed over the last 2 or 3 years that we find two very different personas in HR. The one persona is the one that really embraces everything to do with AI, everything to do with data analytics technology. They are the ones that support data-informed decision-making. They are the ones that really understand the business. They have high collaborative relationships with the business leaders and can really have that so-called seat at the table. But I've also come across a large population in HR that is the opposite, that is really worried, that is scared about anything to do with AI, even with data sometimes, that are emphasizing the risks over the benefits of the new technologies, which really prevents them from getting to know them better.
So she talks about the curious, those who lean into AI to drive results, and the anxious, those who actually freeze up. Now, you'll need to identify both in your organization because they exist. But what if your best AI evangelist isn't even in HR? I also had on Chandra, who shared how non-traditional HR hires are pivoting the organization with varied experience, and they are absolutely crushing it. Think of a 30-year compliance officer bringing risk fluency into HR analytics, or a former teacher driving AI-powered learning journeys.
I believe in non-traditional career paths, and I believe there's a lot of transferable skills that can be woven together to create the perfect employee, right? And a lot of times these days, ATSs don't see that. And also a lot of hiring managers don't really understand, or recruiters don't really understand how to tie together transferable skills and, understand like what makes a great employee. All right. So now with everyone kind of being displaced, laid off, right? Someone who's been in, let's say compliance for 30 years now can't get back into compliance, but they love HR. And so they need to kind of re-enter in another aspect. So now you're getting people with varied experiences who've pivoted multiple times, who have pivoted into HR that didn't have a traditional HR background, but who's able to add so much more value to the people ops organization that it really helps to bring a more cohesive organization together, more thoughts, more experiences to really help desegment HR as it is today. And I do feel like it would be just more of a blend of experiences, a blend of talent, a blend of culture, a blend of, total rewards and benefits and all of those things to really help power the next generation of human capital.
All right, if you're ready to get your organization ready for AI and the org of the future, run a hackathon. And no, it is not just for engineering. HR organizations are already leveraging it. What they do is they separate into teams. They all are giving a problem and they're given tools. Use AI to be able to solve this particular problem. And it is an absolute blast to watch these teams really tap into their curiosity and leverage and get used to AI tools. So if you're doing a hackathon, you're actually accomplishing a couple of things. One, you're giving them exposure to the tools. Two, you're rewarding them for trying to solve a very complicated problem. And three, you're sparking and rewarding their curiosity. All right, now number two is pretty dicey because HR has a lot of sensitive data, salaries, performance, even social security numbers. And when AI enters, that's whenever the trust really gets tested, especially if you don't have a framework ahead of time to administer your AI platforms. In a recent study, 56% of execs cited ethical AI use as their top concern. And AI feedback loops can amplify bias or even misfired data, and it gets really, really messy. Guru, who is the CEO of FairNow, broke it down into 4 pillars of trust.
I think there's 4 pillars that I use when I help leaders on this topic. First is strategy, right? And developing an AI strategy. And oftentimes I'll see people go to, I want to use these tools, or I want to use the latest on AI this, or the latest AI. I want to use agents and just, buzzwords and the latest tools and so on and so forth, where what they need to start is actually, what are the use cases? So if efficiency is your goal, do a classical breakdown of where the highest cost and where there are opportunities to reduce and make things more efficient and automate and all of that kind of stuff. In many cases, you might not even need AI.
Right.
There's a lot you can achieve with just robotic process automation, or like standardization and then simplification and all of that, just from an efficiency standpoint, right? So start with kind of, what are you trying to solve for? What's your goal? And where are the highest opportunities? Part 2 is, okay, I have an AI strategy, but do I have what I need to implement it, especially around data and technology? If I don't have data, then there's a lot of AI I can't build, right? I can't build certain predictive models. I can't build recommendation systems. I can't do skills analysis. I can't do all these things if I don't have great data and great frameworks. And the same with technology, right? Am I going to build this technology internally? Am I going to go buy this externally? Where's the technology? What kind of models? What are we talking? Right? So data and technology then becomes part 2 of the equation. Part 3 is then governance, right? And this is what we've been talking about, right? Okay, now that we're going about this, how do I reconcile kind of my strategy and my technology with my governance principles? And there are a set of those, right? Your ethics principles of what are your red lines? Where will you use AI? Where won't you use AI? How are we going to monitor the tools and technologies? If I'm using vendors, what do I demand or ask of them from a governance standpoint? There's a whole set of questions that you should be asking of them. Do you know that? Do you have a accountability framework internally? So there's a whole kind of governance framework that we can, again, drill down, double click on in a few minutes. And then the 4th thing, as I mentioned, is change management. Okay, we're using the AI. Okay, what does that mean? Especially TA is a great example of this, right?
Yeah.
You can use
in HR, that's usually the only ones that are leveraging AI.
Now it's coming into other places, right? Like in talent management, when it comes to skills, attrition
L&D.
prediction, L&D. I think AI is going to play a huge role in L&D.
Absolutely.
All that kind of stuff. But let's just use recruiting and hiring as an example. From kind of marketing, talent brand marketing, to sourcing, to filtering, to interviewing, to selection, to hiring, that whole funnel, you can use AI in many, many, many aspects of that funnel. Okay, so then what role do humans play? What role do you want recruiters to play now? What role do you want hiring managers to play? The role's going to change. And so figuring out that change management and how that role's changing and how AI works with the humans and implementing that change, that's the 4th bucket here.
So just as a recap, he said strategy, start with the problem, not with the tool. Next up is data and tech. Make sure that your data is clean, validated, or your outputs will absolutely be a lie. Next is governance. Define the red lines early and involve legal on day 1. They are your partner in this. And the last is change management, because AI shifts how, when, and where we work. Now with AI, you can't just bolt it onto broken processes or faulty data and expect for it to work and work right. So just as Guru says, and I love it, you can't have speed without trust, and you can't build trust without transparency. So make sure that you identify and address all of the compliance issues on the front end. Now, let's talk about resistance and fear. A McKinsey study said that 375 million people will need to change careers by 2030 because of AI. That creates panic, and panic always hijacks logic. So one of my favorite books on change is actually Switch by the Heath brothers. What they do is they get into how does the brain process change? And they use a fantastic metaphor. They have an elephant, the rider, and the path. Now, the rider represents our logic, the elephant represents our emotion, and the path represents the change that we're trying to make. Now, what happens whenever the emotion gets out of whack? Well, logic tends to take a back seat because panic equals failure in change. Our brains just cannot take it. So how do we keep that elephant from going out of control? It's all about messaging and intent. Any good AI workforce strategy should not be about replacing workers. It should be about augmenting their intelligence. Help your teams reframe AI as a co-pilot, not as a competitor, and then give them a framework to be able to succeed with AI. So a quick question for you. Who's in control of your HR department right now? The rider or the elephant? So let's recap. First, we have the skill gap. It is imperative everyone in HR takes the time to upskill themselves. Create these micro-learning environments where people can go and get exposure, reward curiosity, and reward experimentation. Next, we want to build trust. Make sure that you are communicating your AI strategy effectively with radical transparency throughout your organization. And last but not least, calm the elephant. Reframe AI as augmentation, not annihilation. If you're struggling to see AI adoption increase in your HR organization, address these 3 problems and I promise you'll be well on your way. Thank you for watching. I am Trent Cotton, and remember, invest in yourself because no one is going to do it like you do.